funny names for people. Charles Dickens was a master at this. Mrs. Gummidge, Joseph Sniggers, Mr. Pecksniff, and a host of others. A few weeks ago, we went to a production of The Country Wife, a restoration comedy at Stratford, Canada. And as soon as I opened the program, I knew I was going to enjoy the play because two of the characters were named Sir Jasper Fidget and Old Lady Squeamish. Jonathan Winters, a current comedian, gets a lot of fun out of making up names like Granny Frickert and Elwood P. Suggins. In many instances, if you use enough funny words, or if you put ordinary words into funny combinations, you can get a laugh without even having to point to a joke. For example, there was this sign that was posted on a bench at a bus stop in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it read, "Crosstown buses run all day." And somebody had added, "Doo-dah." An example of just ordinary words being funny took place. It happened that there was a certain Catholic parish in which a mother house of the St. Francis order was situated across the street from a Franciscan monastery. And one day a nun at the switchboard heard this message: "Sister, this is brother. Father wants to talk to mother." And I think a number of you saw a sketch in the Johnny Carson program in which he and Jack Webb, who became famous as Sergeant Friday of the Dragnet program, made fun of the Dragnet series. And what they did was they just used a combination of funny words. I'll just do a little bit of it here to give you an idea what it was about. The sketch began with Johnny reporting the theft of some copper clappers from a closet. The loss was discovered by Clara Clifford, the cleaning woman, and the clean copper clappers were caught by Claude Cooper, a kleptomaniac. And Carson warned that when he caught Claude Cooper, the kleptomaniac, he clobbered him. And it went on and got funnier and funnier simply because of all those repeated sounds. A second way to help a joke along is to give the impression that it is spontaneous. I think all of you realize that when somebody comes forth with a witticism that has obviously come out of a situation as of the moment, we laugh louder and longer than we do at something that we know has been prepared ahead of time. Some jokes actually are spontaneous. I think, again, referring to the Johnny Carson show, you remember that famous episode that he repeated many, many times on his yearly reviews of the time that Ed Ames, who had been playing an Indian character in a TV series, was demonstrating how to throw a tomahawk. And Ed Ames tossed the tomahawk at the cutout copy of a cowboy, and it landed in a totally unexpected and highly suggestive position. And of course the audience burst into laughter, and then Johnny Carson came forth with one of the most inspired ad-libs I think I've ever heard as of the moment. He said, "And I didn't even know you were circumcised." Adlai Stevenson, when he was running for president, at the end of one of his speeches, a woman called out to him, "You'll get the vote of every thinking American." And Stevenson responded sadly, "Unfortunately, I need a majority." Some of the wisecracks that seem spontaneous actually aren't. Groucho Marx, for example, got a reputation as a spontaneous wit when he was doing the TV show You Bet Your Life. I think some of you may remember that. But actually, almost all of the gags that he presented on that program had been thought out by his staff, his writers, and they were printed on cue cards that the audience couldn't see. And Groucho Marx simply read it off, but did it so well that everybody thought that he had made them up. At the 1974 Academy Award presentations, while David Niven, the actor, was speaking, a nude man suddenly came out from the wings and streaked across the stage. And Niven looked at him and said this: "Isn't it fascinating to think that the only laugh that man will ever get is by by stripping off his clothes and showing his shortcomings. Niven got a real reputation because everybody thought he thought of that at the moment, but it turned out later that he'd been told that this nude man might show up, and so Niven had his joke ready just in case he did, and he came out the right way. A third way to help a joke along is to make the audience laugh at the same joke more than once. If it has more than one charge of humor, I call it a double-barrel joke or a triple-barrel joke. There's one about Margaret Thatcher telling George Bush that when she was thinking of appointing someone to her cabinet, she always gave him a riddle to see if he was smart enough to do the job. And on one occasion, John Major, who succeeded her, was being considered for appointment to her cabinet. And she asked him the riddle, and it's this: if it's your father's son and it's not your brother, who is it? And John Major correctly replied, it's me. George Bush decided he'd like to try this riddle on Dan Quayle. So he asked him the riddle, and Dan Quayle said nervously, I'll get back to you. Quayle ran across the street to his office, and he called Henry Kissinger. And he gave him the riddle, and Kissinger said, it's me. So Quayle came back to George Bush and said, it's Henry Kissinger. Bush said, you stupid nit, it's not Henry Kissinger, it's John Major. And I think many of you have heard this before. Perhaps you've heard that they're beginning to use lawyers in scientific experiments instead of white rats. There are three reasons for this. There are more lawyers now than there are white rats. Sometimes scientists get attached to white rats. And there are still some things that white rats won't do. A triple-barrel joke that my wife's cousin Stu Knight, sitting back there, sent to me through the mail, and it involved the baseball players Wade Boggs, Steve Garvey, and Pete Rose. It happened they were all together in a bar when a very attractive woman walked by. Wade Boggs said, she's certainly beautiful. I think I'll ask her for a date. And Steve Garvey then interjected, don't waste your time, she's carrying my baby. In which Pete Rose responded, want to bet?